Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the very final edition for the regular season of Oklahoma Postgame Live at the Voice of College Football. Oklahoma drops another heartbreaker, 51-48 over Texas Tech. Um, yeah, I mean, guys, it's kind of wash, rinse, repeat. With this team over the year, and again, Oklahoma finds a way to lose a game, just in different ways each and every week. Uh, so and again, this was a different way to lose it. Very similar, in terms of how Oklahoma started the game up 17 to nothing, and then blew that big lead, and then just kind of went back and forth, obviously through the most of the second half. So yeah, I mean, where do you even start? So let's just kind of start on the offensive side, and then we'll go to the defensive side. So offensively, again, you score 48 points, you rack up 672 yards of total offense. Um, you expect to win, and you should win. You should win 10 times out of 10. Um, if you put that many points on the board and you rack up that many yards. Now, I mean, obviously there could be something that said in terms of how quickly Oklahoma's running plays and things like that. And that was certainly a big topic of discussion last week in terms of salting away the game, so to speak. But again, the points and how prolific Oklahoma was by and large through the vast majority of the game, um, you should be able to win that game without a doubt. And so just kind of looking at some of the stats again, Dylan Gabriel wasn't perfect, but it was one of his better games of the year. 28 out of 40, 449 yards, six touchdowns, and the one interception there in the first half. Eric Gray continues to be the workhorse and the bell cow, whatever you want to say, for this team. 28 carries, 161 yards, did not get in the end zone. Marvin Mims had another good day. Five catches, 162 yards. Theo Weiss, three catches, 123. Braden Willis, 7 for 74. Drake Stoops, 6 for 55, and Jilla Fruit, 4 for 20. So, yeah, offensively, Oklahoma was able to do, for by and large, whatever they wanted, for the game, but defensively just couldn't get enough stops. Um, as good as Dylan Gabriel was, Tyler Shuck was 31 out of 50 for 436 yards and a couple of scores. Um, Texas Tech wasn't quite as good on the ground, 45 carries for 163 yards, um, 3.6 yards per carries with four touchdowns. And so Oklahoma was a little bit almost 5 yards per carry, 4.7. But again, Oklahoma's finding, it's a team that's young, it's a team that's very inexperienced in a lot of ways. When you look at how this roster was gutted, almost half of the team is brand new. I think maybe this is something that we probably should have somewhat expected. I mean, not to the degree of 6-6, but I think somewhat expected for this team to struggle. And I don't think many, including myself, many didn't think that we would. So Oklahoma concludes probably one of the most disappointing regular seasons. Again, I'm fairly young. I'm only 41, but I would say probably the most disappointing regular season maybe since John Blake's final year, in which, from a win total perspective, I believe that team finished 5-6. Again, 6-6. Oklahoma will go to a bowl game. I think it's good that they'll get practice, those additional practice time. But other than that, there's not a ton of benefit in going to a bowl game, other than just getting um, some runs for those new kids. And so we'll talk through that. We'll talk through some things, as I'll entertain any questions that you guys have, any comments, and we'll get to that related to the game, related to moving forward with this team. Any questions that you guys have related to some recruiting things. This happened yesterday, I believe. I was one of the guys that reported this here. I got a lot of comments that said that I didn't know what I was talking about and I was crazy, but Anthony Evans flipped officially from Oklahoma to Georgia yesterday. He'd been a silent flip probably since September, honestly, for quite some time. Just hasn't pulled the trigger. Didn't want to create any distractions internally within the team with his high school team, and so we'll see what impact that has, for this team, and who are some guys that Oklahoma could potentially go after, whether it be through the transfer portal, but and then look ahead to what possibilities Oklahoma has from a bowl game perspective. So let's get to your comments and questions here, and then we will go for there. Ryan, thanks for being here. Managed to find a way to lose another one. So many decisions and plays I don't understand. Glad the season though, and I think that's a Ryan. I think that's a common sentiment. I think your last point is fairly well taken. In terms of the season being over, it was a frustrating season for everyone. On top of the way the season ended last year was very frustrating in nature, and to roll out a 6-6 was I think was really disappointing. And you've got, if I can think back through, I think you've got your 6-6, and you've got 4 games that could have went either way. Even if you go 2-2, that's 8-4. I mean, that's not a terrible season, but you win those 4 close games, and all of a sudden 6-6 looks like 10-2. So I'm not a sunshine pumper by any stretch of the imagination. This is not a good football team. I would venture to say, and I'm not necessarily advocating that there needs to be mass changes on the coaching staff, but they don't appear to be a very well, at least across the board, always a well coached team. A lot, not a ton of talent at positions that they need to, and so you're going to see just I think a mass overhaul on this roster next year. Ron, I've seen you say this a couple of times. I don't see how. I just need to understand how a bowl game is 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 going to be bad. It could be nothing but good for this team. Granted, it's not anything. It's not going to be a great bowl game, or it's not something that these kids are necessarily probably excited for based on where they started the year. But I think even if you have a frustrating year, I think it's good to kind of reset and be able to come back, and just have something that's a little bit less stress, and just enjoy the opportunity, and like I said, for no other reason, just to get those extra practice time, extra practice sessions for some of those younger kids as well. Um, Max, when your defense sucks, you have to keep them off the field. Yeah, I think that's the only thing that you could tell that this team was getting gas, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, particularly late in the game. And again, off of, off of playing 102 snaps last week, it looks like this team looks like, let me just do the quick math here. 96 snaps. And that's not even, I'm sorry, that's not even counting the punts. And so let's see. Looks like 101 snaps that this team played off of 102 last week. So this team was certainly very tired. And so I agree with you, Max. I mean, I think Levy's scheme is solid. I don't have any issues with the scheme. Now, one of the things that I think needs to be looked at is, really just the way that they play, the speed that they play at all the time. They need to evaluate where your defense is, um, time, score, situation type of things, and see, um, and just see where you're at as far as that goes. Be situational, be complimentary to your defense. To your point, we're back to having a defense that leaves receivers completely alone and missing dozens of tackles. Yeah, we missed. I think Ryan, the one thing that's interesting is we haven't missed a ton, or we haven't had a lot of busts lately. We did have a couple today. Um, I think Billy Bowman was probably, I mean, it's probably his worst performance of the year, but I do think that he was, it didn't seem like he was right. I think he was still, still kind of hurt. Didn't look like he was running at full speed. So, and so I don't know if the team feels like, obviously the defensive coaching staff felt like a 75% Billy Bowman's better than anyone else that they could put out there. But yeah, a lot of missed tackles. I think the one thing I would say, Danny Stutzman looked like he had 18 tackles. CJ Colden had 18 or had 12, two passes defense, and he had that interception as well. Um, I think I saw a tweet from Parker Thune that had talked about that if he's Venables, the first thing he does is he's going to try to convince if he was Venables, the first thing he would do would be try to convince CJ Colden to come back next year, which he does have the ability. I think he has a medical red shirt remaining that would allow him one extra year of eligibility should he choose to take it. So I think that would be big for Oklahoma. Um, okay, I mean, if your point, Ron, is the fact that you'll have um, several kids, just opting out and not playing, then absolutely. Um, right, 3 turnovers on downs didn't do the defense any favors either. Yep, I think that's right as well. Levy called a horrible game, pound the rock, go route. Yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, you can't just do that for the entire game. Um, so now I didn't really necessarily have a huge problem with the play calls that he had. I didn't love the. I mean, I didn't love the double reverse pass to Gabriel in the overtime period. I didn't think that was necessary to put your only legitimate quarterback in harm's way. And then there were some times where they would snap the ball a little bit too quick for my taste. But other than that, I thought the play calling was fine. Didn't really see um, any issues at all. Yeah, Ryan, agree. Definitely agree there. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, Cole. I think one of the things that you'll see, I think next year, I will be. I think just from some of the things that I'm hearing, this is unless Jackson Arnold comes in and he's not anywhere near as good as advertised, but I don't think so with the level of high school ball that he's playing and just how good he's been over the last few years and just being exactly the type of quarterback that Oklahoma needs. I think you'll see Gabriel come back, but I think that they really, really want to start nurturing and getting Jackson Arnold in there and giving him the opportunity to play early on. So I think Gabriel comes back, he'll be a backup. It'll be a competition, obviously, in spring and fall, but I would think that Jackson Arnold has definitely has a much much better ceiling, higher ceiling, I should say, than Dylan Gabriel does at this point in his career. Let's see. Can I just can I just add that last year we were just a handful of plays from same record with a lot more talent program needs to be rebuilt. Yep, I think that's absolutely fair. I think that one of the differences is this year, um, Jmosh is that team last year obviously had a much, much better quarterback, and just found ways to win these close games. I mean, you see what specifically over these last couple of weeks, you see what Spencer Rattler's been doing for South Carolina. Led them to two top 10 wins, first time in school history they've ever done that. You see what Caleb Williams has done. I mean, throughout the year, um, and the talent that Oklahoma has lost, that's partly on that team with Mario Williams um, and Caleb Williams, like I said, and so you've got guys and you've got a roster that was gutted And so, I mean, I think if you have Caleb Williams on this team's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of where they were last year, probably maybe a 9-3, 10-2 type of team. Coming back this year. Paul, OU coaching staff unprepared play calling. Again, I'm not going to say that I don't think the play calling was horrible. I'm just I've said that a couple of times this year. I don't necessarily agree with that tonight. I thought the play calling was fine. Like I said, in the overtime, I question the play call there. When I question a late substitution, I question not calling a timeout in that situation and rushing a really pivotal play. And those are things that Venables is going to learn with time. First year head coach, but I don't think that was handled as well as probably it should have been, as delicate as it should have been, given the fact that the game was in overtime at that point. So I wouldn't have rushed that play. I would have number one, I wouldn't have subbed so late. But if you are going to sub so late and it looks like you're if it looks like you're going to either be in danger of not getting the play off or having to rush just to snap the ball very quickly to get the play off, then absolutely you got to take your time out there. And I get you only have one timeout to use, but I would absolutely have used that timeout in that situation. So here's what I'll say about the overall, when you look at Venables' defense, when you look at Levy's offense, both of these guys have been ultra successful everywhere they've been. Um, and people that are getting on the defense, people that are getting on the offense, coaching wise, I just don't get it right now. I mean, Levy's offense was great at Ole Miss, was really good at Baylor, has been good at UCF. He was good. He's been really good wherever he's been. It's just he just doesn't have the players that he's had there. Oklahoma doesn't have but the many comments that we're seeing here about how bad the play calling was and how bad the offense had 672 yards total offense, and they scored 48 points. Let me just repeat that one more time. The offense had 672 yards of total offense and 48 points. Again, you should win 10 out of 10 games. Offense was not the reason that Oklahoma lost this game. So, if you guys want to complain and talk about the offense, now, I mean, that's fine. You have every reason to. I mean, you have every right to do that with your opinion, but offense is not the reason Oklahoma lost this game. You should win these games against a team specifically against a team like Texas Tech. You should be able to score 48 points and have almost 700 yards of total offense and feel fine like your offense did what it's supposed to do. So, Ryan, I watched a few guys on defense absolutely taking plays off. Redmond was guilty. Yeah, I think that's something that Ryan that I've noticed on several occasions. Um, let's see. We'll go to Mike lost 3 games by a field goal at the end where there were so many opportunities to take control. Yeah, no, I agree, Mike, and this is something, that I've mentioned, a couple of times that this team continues to find different ways to lose games. I think, they've lost games with big leads. They've lost games where they got themselves in the hole early, Kansas State game. They've lost games where um where they just couldn't execute at key points in the games. And so, um, again, just different ways to lose games, and this team's going to have to figure out how to um, win to be good. Right, that 4th and inches play where they were snapped it quickly as possible from the gun. Yeah, no, I agree, and that's the one thing I don't think that there's countless countless comments that I'm not going to entertain today about just not going to talk about those about coaches needing to be fired and um, Oklahoma having a worse coaching staff than a high school team. Like that's just, I mean, that's not realistic. But there are situations where I've said this a couple of times, Ryan, and I agree with you that some of those plays that were snapped so quickly, um, that's an issue that I would, if I was BV, that I would talk about, continuously through the offseason. We need to find a way to understand when to press on the gas and then when to hit the brake a little bit, just in terms of how quickly, they're snapping the ball. Jay must say what you want about DG, but if you need a QB a good deal better than that just to compete for a Big 12 title, you just aren't a strong program. Um, I disagree. I mean, I think today was not necessarily a microcosm of Gabriel. He was really good for the most part, but he's been wildly inconsistent all year long, and he's not at the level that Oklahoma quarterbacks are accustomed to. Right, so I think I think Oklahoma has the opportunity to have a little bit of an upgrade at that position. And we'll see. I mean, Dylan Gabriel could come back and work hard and, fix some of his, control issues and he could win the job um, in the fall or even in the spring. And, this could be a moot point. But, we've seen that from time to time players, but he's an experienced player and you don't know that you would expect him to improve just a ton, in the off season, but it's been known to happen. So, um, Jacob, thanks for bringing some clarity here. It's the defense. Yeah, defense was bad again tonight. And part of it was the just how many just not able to get off the field. Again, when you look at the team stats here, Oklahoma was a little bit better on for in third down, but still 7 for 18. It's around what 35%, um, a little less. So, staying on the field, sustaining those drives from time to time, and then getting off the field. Texas Tech wasn't as bad, but again, Texas Tech was 7 for 17, so not terrible, but not exactly what you'd want. But just not getting stops and combined with the time of possession, which this game wasn't quite as bad. Oklahoma was only Texas Tech was had more time of possession just by 5 minutes in the entire game, so not terribly bad. Um, yeah, agree here. Lawrence dropped the one definitely late. Barnes dropped the pass in the first. I think that was in the first half as well. Wow, Josh, this is a loaded question. Um, I've heard kind of anecdotally that there's going to be a lot of people all across the board on the offense and the defensive side that's going to leave, and there's going to be some that might shock you. So I think this is another. It's potentially another rebuild. You guys saw that um, Oklahoma already got that transfer from defensive lineman Jacob Lacey from Notre Dame. Oklahoma's already very much active in the portal. I think that's one thing that this staff had learned this past year is that Oklahoma was, I mean, and part of it was when they got on campus, but they were way too late, kind of getting engaged with some of those kids from the portal. So I think you'll see that. But I think you'll see a lot a lot of people that are on this team that leave. So I think you'll see a big roster turnover, Josh. Let's see. Putting Gabriel in that position rocked is unforgivable, especially when you're back up. Yeah, no, I that's the one thing that I'll tell you guys. Um, that was the one situation where I absolutely blame Levy. That was a very bad play call, particularly in that situation, without a doubt. Ron, you're wrong. I mean, point and simple. I'll come on here and tell you when I'm wrong, but I have heard unequivocally by a lot of the local guys, a lot of the national guys, he is actively recruiting for Oklahoma right now. He's the main reason the DB from NEO A&M has announced his commitment there. So he is. I would be jaw on the table, shocked if he flips. He is 100% OU right now. So I'm not going to you know that's the one thing that I'll get into that with you, but um, other than that, I won't um, like entertain that type of stuff. But yeah, he's going to be here without a doubt at this point. Things could change, but at this point right now, 110% he'll be here. Let's see. The defense seems worse than it is because the offense is too inconsistent, and not reliable through the agree with that, Mike. I think I think this team has not been able to play um complementary football through the year, without a doubt. Um let's see. Just so you guys know, um I have I have blocked the individual that you guys know. I'm just all the negativity. I'm not gonna. I'm okay with being critical, but the constant negativity over and over and over and over and over again, I'm not gonna deal with that tonight. So, he's been blocked for now. Um, Ron Brown is the guy. I know that you guys know. Um, yeah, I think he played great today. I'm not saying he didn't play good today, Ronnie. I think today he played very well, but he hasn't necessarily played that well all year consistently. Georgia won a natty with Stetson Bennett, not going to get a Heisman contender every year. No, I agree with that. I'm not necessarily saying that, but Oklahoma's defense is not anywhere near in the same hemisphere as Georgia. If Oklahoma gets to the point where they have a Georgia like talent on defense, then I absolutely agree. You could win a championship with a guy like Dylan Gabriel. But right now, until that roster gets turned over a little bit, um, you will see you will continue to see Oklahoma be in an area of need for really good quarterback play. Has to be elite right now. Yeah, I think Lone Wolf. I think the idea is when you have Jackson Arnold in here, and assuming Dylan Gabriel comes back, um, I wouldn't think that he would not come back next year. But assuming that he comes back, and then you've got the Nick Evers kid as well with another year in the system and another, and a full off season that you'll have be in a much different position than you were this year going forward. I there's I think General Booty will still be here. Um, Outside of that, I don't know if any of the existing QBs will be asked to, kind of remain with this team. Um, yeah, they didn't show that a lot, Lucid, but it looked, it looked like um, it looked like it was good. Possibly. Um, let's see here. Yeah, Jay. I mean, I think it'll probably be more than that, but yeah, to your point, at least there's going to be a lot. Um, yeah, I don't think we're doomed. I think with what Oklahoma has coming in next year, and then the previous year or the next year, um, they'll start to be um, moving in the right direction in terms of the um, quarterback play. Let's see, Bobby Redwine, Ted Roof, and Jeff need to go in the portal. Roof, I've talked to a lot of people. I don't think he'll be back one way or the other. I don't think he'll be part of this team next year. Um, Cindy, it's unfortunate. I thought that Oklahoma was making some progress last week. It just seems like this team takes one step forward and two steps back on the defensive side of the ball. Unfortunately, um, it's just I thought with how they played last week against Oklahoma State that you saw that you would see improvement a little bit, but it appears that um, that's not the case, unfortunately. Thanks, Ryan. I think it just gets too much. Like it would be okay if there's just one or two comments, but it's just negative stuff after negative stuff, and just don't um, really want to see that right now. Jay, I saw the ball. Yeah, I think that was too. I mean, I thought that was too. I thought just I don't know. There's just a lot of things that this team needs to overcome technique wise. I think they fall back into some of the old bad habits that they've had in the past. And tackling the football is definitely one of them. Is Stoops coming back next year? Man, I really hope so, but from everything that I've been hearing, I think he really wants to um I think he really wants to kind of get a head start on his coaching career. So he'd be a great addition. He just addition to come back next year for this receiving core, but which obviously Marvin Mims will not be back next year. I would be floored if he is. But I think um, that'll be something to keep an eye on. But from everything I've heard at this point, which obviously could change, that it's not looking good that he'll be coming back. It's going to be painful watching them in a crappy bowl game. Hope it's not Boise. No, I don't think it'll be Boise. That was just a situation where there was just kind of an at large um, New Year's Six-Day bowl. I mean, I think Oklahoma's probably obviously headed to a lesser bowl, probably the Texas Bowl. If I had to guess, right now, I've heard Mississippi State's a possible team that Oklahoma could play, possibly a SMU, possibly a Wisconsin, possibly a. Those are the teams that I've heard mostly that Oklahoma might be playing in a bowl game. Let's see. When I can call what the offense is running, defense can 100% drags. Um, yeah, I mean, there's some times that it can be a little bit predictable, but I think I think sometimes it gets scaled down um, based on the talent that Oklahoma has on the field, and Oklahoma just it's plain to see that Oklahoma is not as talented as they've been in the past, either side of the ball, all across the board. Um, so, well, I want to thank everybody for joining. Really, just a crazy day of college football. Obviously, we're all disappointed, but just for those that watch all of just on the national scene, I did not I did not expect Michigan to beat Ohio State. I thought there was a better chance of Ohio State beating Michigan by the score that Michigan beat Ohio State by. So I guess the good thing, if you're a Buckeye fan, you've got a lot of other teams that have lost across the way. Um, but I think, unfortunately, for a lot of us that wanted to see USC crash and burn, Caleb Williams is probably is the is the big time leader in the clubhouse for the Heisman right now, and USC is in really good shape to make the playoffs. Unfortunately, and Oklahoma's ended at a 6-6 season, which is just a little bit of a slice of humble pie for us um, that aren't willing to kind of accept that, and maybe not that we're not willing to accept that, but not accustomed to seeing that. And this is a season that Oklahoma fans, including myself, aren't accustomed to seeing over the last few years. Last long while, Oklahoma barely getting to bowl eligibility, which has, like I said, hasn't happened in a long time. So we'll see what bowl OU ends up in. Obviously, right now the name of the game is recruiting, and kind of roster management, transfer portal stuff like that. Stuff will start flying in. It's already started, but guys, you know, declaring for the draft and hitting the transfer portal, and kind of recruiting up in here until the December 21st, I think, is the official signing day. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll be back here with you on Wednesday at 11:30 to um, to uh, to continue to talk through the rest of the season. And the one thing that I'll leave, and I see um, a lot of people that feel that a huge majority of the blame goes on the coaching staff, and that our players, Oklahoma's players, are as talented as they've ever been. And respectfully, I'm just here to say Oklahoma does not have anywhere near the talent level that they need to have, or that they've had in the past. When you look holistically at this team across the board, both at the line of scrimmage and both at the skill position players on offense, and then the linebackers and the secondary. They're not anywhere near um, our our quarterback room is, as outside of Gabriel, as less talented as it's been in a long, long, long time. And I think you understand that with Oklahoma, who they lost, right? And then the running back room, while it may be you have a lot of young talent. You've got Eric Gray, who has matched and maybe surpassed Kennedy Brooks last year, but outside of that, you've got a young Javante Barnes that's going to be a stud, but you don't have a lot behind that. Wide receiver wise, I think wide receiver wise is where you see the most drop off You've got Marvin Mims, who is a very good wide receiver, 1,000-yard guy. He's going to be an NFL player, I think, at some level, at some point. But aside from him, Oklahoma does not have a lot of um, game breakers. So I think the hard reality to face here is that the Oklahoma's talent isn't as good as it's been in the past. So that's why recruiting's so big. That's why the transfer portal is so big. But the fact that the fact that there's the belief out there that this talent is as good as it's been, last year, the last few years, we're just not we're not being objective, and we're not really understanding what's happening across the country. When you look at teams like Ohio State, at the skill position players, when you look at, I mean, just across the board, even Texas, Oklahoma is not anywhere near as talented, um, as those guys across the board, and so they need to get there, and they can, but it'll just take some time. So, everybody enjoy. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, and enjoyed your long weekend. You got one more day of that weekend to enjoy. Thanks for coming here, and being part of this every single week. I know there's been a couple of times where I've had to reschedule and do things, so I appreciate you guys being patient and sticking around with me, throughout the season and what has been a really trying season for Oklahoma. And It'll be a very interesting offseason to see where Oklahoma goes in terms of kind of coaching staff types of things, defensive coordinator, wide receiver coach, to name a couple, and then the portal and recruiting, and then obviously looking forward to the bowl game. One more opportunity to see this team play. So, but thanks everybody for joining. We'll see you Wednesday at 11:30. 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central. You guys have a wonderful weekend. God bless, and Boomer Sooner.